So today I'm very lucky to be joined by Stephen Shelton. And Stephen is a senior blockchain developer at PureStake working on the Moonbeam core protocol. Stephen is an ETHDenver veteran. He's also a Colorado local. And so he's got a lot of insight about ETHDenver, particularly with the hacker experience. And he also has experience as a judge, a sponsor, and a mentor. So we'll be talking about all that today. But before we go, I will just, before we start off, I will give a quick background to ETHDenver, and also I'll introduce the bounties that Moonbeam has. So you may already know me. I'm a developer relations engineer at Moonbeam, and my first ETHDenver was 4 years ago, actually, so 2019. And two things really stuck out to me at my first ETHDenver. One was a feeling of belonging. So everyone is welcome at ETHDenver. Crypto newbies, crypto veterans, crypto curious, people who have a 9 to 5 and they work for traditional finance, but on the side they're exploring crypto. ETHDenver, really, there's something for everyone here. There are sessions that are extremely advanced, EVM bytecode specific, nitty-gritty, low-level stuff, and then there's also more beginner level content, and there's also side events that kind of help to prepare you. So there are specifics such as like a prep camp, I believe, for people who this may be their first time hacking in Web3, and there are different side events to help you get prepared. So the first one was a feeling of belonging, and the second thing that stuck out to me was the spirit of biddling. There's an emphasis on building, on experimenting, trying something new, right? With hackathons, I always feel like, there's this temptation to kind of refine your idea endlessly and to kind of not really get started building. You're saying, I'm still thinking about my idea. I'm not really sure. And maybe there's this other thing I could start. Well, my suggestion is don't let perfection, be the enemy of good. This is a hackathon, not a build a polished company with a fully working product-a-thon. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, get started building right away. Even though ETHDenver takes place over the span of a week and a half, the core building time where everybody's kind of in the same area is limited. There's not that much time. So don't be afraid to get started early and to start building right away. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce the bounties. So we have 2 bounties this year, and both of them are identical in structure, in the sense that there's a first place prize and a second place prize for each of them. So we have 4 prizes in total. And our first bounty is to use a general message passing, or GMP protocol, to remotely call a smart contract. So if you participated in a prior Moonbeam hackathon, we've done several in the last year, you may have seen a similar bounty here. But this is because we're so passionate about interoperability, and we're very big on connected contracts, which are enabled by general message passing. So of course we had to include that as a bounty here. And we have plenty of ideas for sample projects. You could build a multi-chain DEX aggregator. You could build a multi-chain NFT marketplace. You could build a cross-chain yield aggregator. And again, these are just samples. We're not trying to be prescriptive here. To be eligible, your DApp should have at least some smart contract logic deployed to Moonbeam or the Moonbase testnet. And secondly, it needs to implement a cross-chain contract call that plays a non-trivial role. So as an example, if you're building a cross-chain DEX, and let's say that all you're doing is deploying Uniswap to 2 chains, and then you're sending a hello world message at random intervals between the 2 chains. That would be considered trivial and not really within the spirit of what we're looking for. So with this bounty, you can send a message to or from Moonbeam or Moonbase Alpha. So what do I mean to or from? Well, I mean that you could be on Moonbeam and you could send a message to Ethereum, for example, to take an action. You could send a message to Avalanche or Polygon, or vice versa. So you could be on Ethereum and you could send a message to Moonbeam to take an action, such as making a swap, buying or selling an NFT, or anything like that. And I'm referring to Moonbeam and Moonbase Alpha somewhat interchangeably here. It's a hackathon, so we're expecting you to, build on a testnet. Maybe it's up to you in terms of, whether you want your final project to be on Moonbeam or to be on Moonbase Alpha. And we have all of the, integrations for the GMP protocols on Moonbeam and also typically on Moonbase Alpha. So what are we looking for in terms of the best and highest quality submissions? We're looking for you to have cross-chain logic that's interesting, that's relevant, and complex. So complexity here counts in the sense that it's better to be ambitious rather than to perfect a very simple, basic cross-chain interaction. So to kind of go a bit deeper in depth, I wanted to kind of show an example of what would qualify and what might not qualify in terms of kind of what we're looking for. So I mentioned that there needs to be some smart contract logic deployed to Moonbeam or Moonbase Alpha. So let's look at this in the context of an NFT example. So suppose that we've built an escrow smart contract on Moonbeam. And suppose that this escrow smart contract, when it's sufficiently funded, sends a message to purchase an NFT on OpenSea, on Ethereum. Well, this would be sufficient because there is smart contract logic on Moonbeam, and there's a cross-chain transaction that's taking place. So this passes all the requirements. On the other hand, suppose that we built a front end with a single button that sends a cross-chain message to purchase an NFT on OpenSea. So absent other smart contract logic on Moonbeam, if you just have a button that sends a message to Ethereum and then buys an NFT, that does not fulfill the requirements because you don't have any smart contract logic that's deployed onto Moonbeam. So that's kind of the summary of the first bounty, which is to use any GMP protocol to remotely call a smart contract. So to speak a little bit more specifically about the different GMP protocols, you can use any one. You can use Axelar, Hyperlane, Layer 0, Wormhole. You can also use Polkadot's XCM. So you can use XCM Transactor. You can use the Ethereum XCM palette, and you really have a lot of flexibility here. So that's the first bounty. And the second bounty, let me just talk about the prizes real quickly. So for both the first and the second bounty, we have a first and a second place prize for each of them. The first place prize is $4,000 and the second place prize is $1,000. So our second bounty is focused on improving your dapp's UX with batching or gasless transactions. So as you may know, we're very focused on improving the end user experience. And that's kind of the motivation behind connected contracts, is to allow you to access more features across different chains, but providing you with a unified, elegant, and seamless experience as an end user. We don't want users to feel stressed or to feel confused about having to switch from chain to chain or having to bridge or having to get the native gas token on some other chain. Instead, we want you to be able to be on Moonbeam and then be able to interact with many different chains underneath the hood. And so as part of this mission to improve DApp usability and improve user experience, we have tons of different precompiles that do some pretty powerful things that are not available in typical Ethereum. And so these precompiles allow you to access functionality by simply using a Solidity interface. And oftentimes they're accessing substrate functionality under the hood. And so the precompiles are a way to expose this to dApps and to end users. So this bounty is focused on batching and gasless transactions. And those are two actual precompiles. So the batch precompile allows you to combine multiple smart contract calls into a single transaction. So if you're making a swap on BeamSwap or SolarFlare or StellaSwap, you can batch together both the approval and the swap transaction into one single transaction. And this is a big deal because you can make it atomic, in the sense that let's say you make an approval, right? And then let's say the price changes, and so the swap, when you're ready to make the swap, 10 seconds later, let's say the swap does not go through. Well, in that sense, you didn't have to make the approval because the swap wasn't going to go through. So with the batch precompile, you can make this atomic so that either the whole thing succeeds or the whole thing fails. But really, the huge advantage here is that this is safety, right? This is faster and easier for the user. So as a convenience and simplicity and elegance, it's much better. But then it's also safer because users don't have to do a unlimited allowance. They can instead approve, as they go, without any burden on the user experience. So, kind of elaborating about sample projects here, we can envision this being used in a one-click revoke allowances DApp, in a one-click yield harvesting DApp, and to kind of just go further into those. If you know revoke.cash, this is a powerful website. It's a multi-chain site as well that allows you to revoke your token allowances across many different dApps. So to be safe, it's smart to revoke these from time to time. And with revoke.cash, you have to go through one at a time and click, 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 right? With something like the batch precompile, you could aggregate these calls perhaps into a single call. So that could be very cool to see. I also mentioned a one-click yield harvesting DApp, just because let's say you're farming across a couple different pools or a couple different dApps, it would be very convenient to be able to claim these rewards all at once rather than having to go through and click from DApp to DApp and pool to pool and claim these all separately. So that'd be cool to see. Another possibility, and this is kind of the second part of the second bounty, is to use the call permit precompile. And the call permit precompile allows you to dispatch arbitrary EVM calls in a gasless manner. So this works similarly to how you might approve a swap on 1inch, for example, where you can sign a message that allows a token to be spent. But in this case, the call permit precompile applies to all EVM calls, not just to token spend approvals. So it's much more powerful and you can do a lot with it. And so some example projects here, again, nothing prescriptive, just throwing out some sample ideas, include recurring or scheduled payments. It includes, you could build an auction DApp, or you could build a dead man's switch DApp. So what I say here for recurring or scheduled payments, you could have some logic here where a user signs a message, but perhaps the funds are not taken from the account until a later point in time. For both of these precompiles, you only have to use one of them. No need to use both. But we're looking for you to use one of them in a manner that enhances your dApp's user experience. And we won't give sort of undue preference to dApps that use both. So if you don't feel any pressure, just use one, pick one, and use it in a manner that's relevant and adds value. And speaking of judging guidelines, and I'm almost done here with my explanation. Speaking of judging guidelines, we don't have any other judging guidelines other than our bounty requirements. So we're going to be evaluating projects based on the same ETHDenver wide rubric. And I won't go through all of that now, but if you look on the ETHDenver judging guidelines, you'll see how they evaluate projects for the main track prizes, and we'll be looking at that in the same manner here. I don't know if I mentioned, I think I did mention the prizes, but first place prize, $4,000, second place prize, $1,000, and that is for each bounty. So we're awarding up to a total of 4 prizes. And I lastly do need to mention that we reserve the right to withhold prizes in cases where low quality submissions don't meet our bounty requirements, but we don't envision that would be a problem. We're very excited to see what you all built. So now I'm very happy and lucky to be able to introduce Stephen Shelton. So if you're just joining us now, Stephen is a senior blockchain engineer at PureStake who's working on the Moonbeam core protocol. And he's participated in ETHDenver in 2019 and also last year as a speaker, a mentor, and a judge. So welcome, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm excited to be here.
So some people have called ETHDenver, the DevCon of the US. Um, since you participated back in 2019, I wanted to ask you, why is ETHDenver such a beloved event?
So ETHDenver is a really energetic and somewhat chaotic event. Everyone's there. They're all excited and optimistic, yet no one really quite knows what to expect. People show up to build, network, party, chill, and of course to have fun. Also, I'm a bit biased since I live nearby, but Denver is very fun, has a very fun culture. It's got skiing, mountain biking, hiking, some of the best beer and coffee you can find, and great food and night scene. And it's a huge tech hub. So ETHDenver doesn't have to try to fit in, it just does.
If only there was more time during the week, to have like a ski trip or something. But I think there is, for people who are staying there longer, there is a like a mountain retreat that takes place the week after ETHDenver, if I'm
Yeah, I think
correct.
you're right. I've never done that, but I think for the following few days after judging wraps up, there's that retreat. Yeah.
I haven't either, but could be very interesting for people who have time to go, and maybe a low key relax and unwind after a crazy couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of fun. I'd love to do it one year.
So Stephen, you participated as you mentioned in 2019 as a hacker. For somebody who this is their first time at ETHDenver, you know, what advice would you give to somebody who's this is just their first time and they're kind of looking for tips?
I'd say just generally prepare yourself to take everything in. There's so much going on and so many people and teams that you'll meet that you'll hardly get a break. The energy level at this event is off the charts, so just get excited and prepare yourself mentally for that. Also, familiarize yourself with the venue and the surrounding area so you'll know how to get around. Have some ideas about how you'll feed yourself and where you'll stay, and organize information and make a calendar so you don't have to fumble around to figure out where you should be next or what you want to do next. And specifically for hackers, prepare your dev machine and practice using some of the tools that you'll be building with. In general, make sure you can hit the ground running when the hackathon starts.
That's awesome. And I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation will be this year. I'm sure it'll be better than last year, but there were some points where I think the Wi-Fi was kind of bad, and so if you need to download anything before getting to ETHDenver, you need to install some stuff. Might not be a bad idea to do that before you arrive.
Yeah, that's a great point. Especially when you're going to interact with the judges, I would make sure that you can give your demo entirely offline, and definitely don't count on the Wi-Fi. It's been pretty spotty in the past.
And so ETHDenver welcomes teams of varying sizes. I don't have the exact limits in front of me, but for a solo hacker who's showing up to ETHDenver, um, what is there? Are there any ways for them to meet their team and join and build the team?
Yeah, definitely. So this year there's an official Discord group, which ETHDenver recommends. The link is discord.gg/sporkdown, and I think we'll have that in the comments. Also, attending events leading up to the hackathon can be a great way to meet others in person and discuss project ideas. There's a lot of events, so again, preparation will go a long way. Also, when I was a hacker in 2019, there was also a speed dating session for last minute group formation. And there were a lot of people involved in that. I don't know if they'll have something like that this year, but be on the lookout.
The Discord absolutely is a huge place to go, right? And you can do this async before you arrive, so you can make friends, you can share interests, and again, everybody is welcome, right? So there are people in the Discord who are saying, I'm a designer, or I'm an engineer, I'm front end, I'm back end, I am a Solidity engineer. There are people who say, I'm a Scrum Master, like I'll lead the team, and provide direction. And so there's tons of different roles. I think could be very useful to discuss ahead in the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Stephen, uh, ETHDenver is such a big hackathon, right? There are, let's say, 10,000 or more people there. We don't have a count of the bounties, but safe to say that it's probably pretty large. So for somebody who's trying to get settled and in the first couple of days pick a project idea and get started implementing it, how should they evaluate the bounties, and is there any sort of strategy to kind of like settling on an idea and picking bounties to work on?
Yeah, definitely. And in general, you want to kind of reduce the list of bounties to those that are either practical to your project or generally interesting to you. So if you have an idea of what you're going to build, then you can easily just rule out any bounties that don't apply to what you're planning on building. But in either case, look for bounties that are related to each other, where you could cover more than one bounty with the same features. And of course, choose bounties which you find personally interesting. Also, don't stretch for too many bounties because each bounty you work on will consume a lot of your time, not only in feature development, but in communication and preparation with the staff and judges. So in general, make the best use of your time.
Oh, I love that point that you brought up, that the judges and the sponsors and the mentors are there to help you, right? So there are avenues to get help, and we'll be doing office hours um, at least three times during the week. Of course, we'll always be available on Discord, and if you come by our booth at any time, but we have specific reserved office hours that are a great time to come find us. And those exact hours, um, we put out a tweet about them, and we'll publish them. But just to share them, we have one at 11 a.m. On Thursday. Then we're going to do 2 p.m. on Friday, March 3rd, and we're going to have kind of like a cram session, final last night office hours at 5 p.m. on Saturday. But of course, you can see us anytime. So, Stephen, I was also thinking, um, based on the second bounty, um, with the two precompiles, I think for folks to understand the batch precompile, it's a little bit easier to understand. You can batch transactions together, but I think the call permit precompile can be a bit more confusing. Do you want to walk us through a bit, like how the call permit precompile, how that works?
Yeah, definitely. So on the surface, a call permit looks almost entirely like a normal transaction, except that it doesn't attach any funds to pay for gas. And this is why we sometimes use the term gasless transaction. So let's say Alice wants to interact with a contract, but not directly pay for gas fees. She would create a call permit to call this contract and then sign it with her wallet. By the way, our doc site has some great examples of doing this. Unlike a normal transaction, the permit isn't broadcast to the network, nor is it gossiped or stored in the mempool. So she would then need to somehow make this signed permit available for others to use in a normal transaction. This normal transaction is where the fees would be paid. So let's say then that Bob is interested in paying for the gas for Alice's permit. He would create a normal transaction, which calls the dispatch function on the call permit precompile, passing Alice's signed permit data. This precompile would then validate the permit signature and also ensure that Bob provided enough gas for Alice's permit plus the transaction it's wrapped in. And if everything checks out, the precompile would then make the permit's call as though it was sent from Alice and not Bob. From here, the permit works just like a normal transaction call. So this scenario might make sense for both parties if Alice's call happened to provide some value for Bob, which could be as simple as sending him some ERC20 tokens. Doing something like this would give Bob the economic incentive to pay for Alice's gas, and for Alice, it's as though she paid for gas in another token.
Oh, amazing! And uh, in terms of like project examples and things like that, we love throwing out examples, and just we don't want to be prescriptive. We don't want to tell people what to work on, but we do want to get people thinking about maybe inspiring them a little bit with different various different ideas. Maybe people want to take bits and pieces. So I guess I just want to wrap up with do you have any wish list items that you're maybe you'd love to see built at ETHDenver this year on Moonbeam?
Yeah, definitely. In general, I'd really like to see some cross-chain innovations. There's a lot of room for improvement in some of the UX around cross-chain interactions, especially in wallets and explorers. These days, we have some very rich and intuitive interfaces, and bringing the same richness to use cases involving multiple chains will be a big leap forward. Similarly, I'd like to see DeFi protocols be able to leverage assets and liquidity on multiple chains. Liquidity fragmentation has always been a detriment to DeFi products, so being able to combine liquidity across different chains would be a huge win for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think we also wanted to just kind of mention that, it sounds complex building cross chain. It sounds a little bit intimidating, but uh, Moonbeam combined with GMP protocols really make it easy. And using Axelar, using Layer 0, Hyperlane, or Wormhole, when you're making a cross-chain transaction, you're providing the destination chain, you're providing the contract address, of the contract on the destination chain that you want to interact with, and then you're providing a payload data. What is the transaction that you want to make? What's the call data of that? And in some cases, there may be information about gas refunds, or you may need to pay a little bit more. You may need to pass along a fee in order to pay for your transaction on the destination chain. But when we kind of parse that out, it's really not that different at all from making a contract call on the same chain. So I just wanted to add that part. And yeah, any closing thoughts before we wrap up? And yeah, Stephen, if you had any closing thoughts before we wrap up, and then I'll go and talk just a little bit about events that we have going on.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm just really excited to meet some of you guys in person and see what you're working on. So see you next week.
Likewise, I'm incredibly excited. It's been a long winter, and this seems like this is kind of the kickoff, to 2023 in terms of large events. So before we go, I do want to highlight a couple different things. One is a giveaway. We have some custom backpacks this year, some very high quality and fancy swag that we're giving away. And it's not a first come first serve, backpacks on the table type of thing, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So if you're building on Moonbeam, if you're working on one of our bounties, meaning so that's really, there are two main things. One is that you're building, you're working on one of these bounties, and two is that you show up to one of our office hours. The first 10 developers will receive a very special backpack, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm very excited to see. And these will be exclusive. These will be limited. So it's not that everybody gets one, and not not like a free for all. These are very special, exclusive, and limited. We also have a community event. So this is going to be a chill community and drinks event with Moonbeam, Moonwell, and Biconomy. So we'd love to see you there. That's on March 2nd, starting at 7 p.m., going until 10 p.m. And that's Thursday, March 2nd. And the location is Miller's and Rossi in Denver. So we're going to have very chill drinks, food, good conversations, good vibes. Come hang out, have a little party with us. And we're also going to have tacos there too. So that should be very fun. You do need to register for that. So please, we don't want to turn anybody away at the door, especially community members who are listening to this Twitter Spaces. So make sure that you register. I also want to highlight Derek, the CEO of PureStake and the founder of Moonbeam. He has a a talk called Cross-Chain Protocol Architectures, Key Trends and Challenges in 2023. That will be on March 2nd. That's also the same Thursday, and that'll be between 5 p.m. and 5:20. You can see that talk as well as other talks. Stephen is going to have a workshop. You'll be able to see that all on the ETHDenver schedule. And I think that covers just about everything. So please reach out to us in discord.gg/moonbeam. We have a specific hackathons channel, which we love to discuss everything ETHDenver and everything hackathons related. We're also going to be present in the ETHDenver Discord. So it's whichever one you prefer. We're going to have eyes on both of those. Stephen, I want to say a huge thank you for joining us today. And thank you to Peter for organizing this Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Look forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah, likewise. We'll see you all next week.
All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone.